Did you know that you do not actually have to cut out carbohydrates to fix your blood sugar? In fact, the absolute fastest way to turn your blood sugars around is actually more about adding specific foods to your plate rather than eliminating entire food groups like carbs completely. And I have seen this happen firsthand. I have worked with hundreds and hundreds of patients who have completely turned their numbers around in just a matter of days, simply by adding these key foods to their daily regimen. And this is not just a temporary fix. They are still able to keep their sugars consistently low without relying on medications for months and even years down the road. So, in this video, I am going to show you exactly how to use each of these 10 foods to fully optimize your internal biochemistry and reverse insulin resistance on a deep cellular level so you can bring down your sugars quickly, naturally, and most importantly, sustainably. Before I get into the very first food, do me a quick favor. If you want more videos that truly explain the why behind how your body works instead of just handing you a prescription pill, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and leave me a comment telling me what your morning fasting number was this past week. I read through them personally, and the age and numbers of this audience genuinely shape exactly what topic I cover next. So, let us get right into it. Here is what almost no one explains to you in a rushed 12-minute office visit. High blood sugar almost always starts far upstream with a critical hormone called insulin. Insulin is the hormone that acts like a key to unlock your cells so that glucose, which is the sugar floating in your blood, can get out of your bloodstream and move into the cell where it actually belongs to be used for energy. When you have spent years riding the blood sugar roller coaster, your cells eventually stop answering the door. The insulin knocks and knocks, but the cell stays firmly shut. We call that condition insulin resistance. Your pancreas then has to pump out more and more insulin to compensate for the resistance, but your blood sugar continues to climb anyway. And the standard medical answer is a prescription that pushes even more insulin into a biological system that is already completely drowning in it. The system makes money when you stay sick, not when you get well. That is simply economics, not malice. There is no revenue and no time on a short office visit to teach you how food talks directly to your insulin receptors. So I'm going to do it for you right now. My name is Dr. Harold Meyers, and every single one of these 10 foods does one of 3 specific jobs. It either slows the sugar coming into your system, it cools down the chronic inflammation that keeps your cells totally deaf to insulin, or it wakes the insulin receptor back up so your own body can do the work it was originally designed to do. You do not have to try to do all 10 of these tomorrow morning. Just add them in gradually over the next couple of weeks and stack them on top of each other. Let me show you the first powerful food. The first food is fenugreek seeds. These are small, hard, amber-colored seeds, and you can easily find them in the spice aisle of almost any local grocery store for just a couple of dollars. If you ignore this one just because it sounds a bit exotic, you are walking right past one of the most powerful blood sugar management tools on the entire shelf, and it costs less than your daily cup of coffee. Here is exactly what fenugreek does inside your body. The seed is packed with a very special type of soluble fiber called galactomannan. When it hits the water inside your stomach, it swells up into a thick, viscous gel, and that gel physically slows down how fast your stomach empties digested carbohydrates into your small intestine. Slower emptying means the sugar trickles into your blood very gradually instead of flooding it all at once. No flood means no giant spike and no panic dump of insulin from your pancreas. On top of that, fenugreek carries a unique amino acid that gently nudges your pancreas to release insulin more efficiently while simultaneously helping your muscle cells take up glucose from the blood. In my own medical practice, I have watched fasting numbers come down significantly within a week or two on this single change alone. To use it properly, take 1 teaspoon of the whole seeds and soak them in a glass of water overnight. In the morning, drink the water and eat the softened seeds right before you have breakfast. If the slightly bitter taste is too much for you to handle, you can grind them up and stir a half teaspoon into some yogurt or sprinkle it over your morning eggs. Start low and go slow because this fiber is incredibly strong and your gut needs a few days to fully adjust to it. Number 2 is cinnamon, and you almost certainly already have this sitting in your kitchen cupboard right now, but the specific kind you have matters immensely, and most people grab the wrong one at the store. The common grocery store cinnamon is called cassia cinnamon, and it carries a specific compound called coumarin that can be very hard on your liver in large daily doses. The one you actually want to look for is Ceylon cinnamon, which is sometimes labeled as true cinnamon. It is much milder, it is safer to take every single day, and it is the exact one I tell my own patients to buy. What makes cinnamon work so beautifully is a group of active polyphenols. Those are natural plant compounds that behave almost like insulin themselves within your body. They help your insulin receptors grip onto glucose much more tightly, and they slow your stomach from emptying too fast after a meal. The physiological effect is real and it is highly measurable. Research out of the Human Nutrition Program at the USDA found that consuming under half a teaspoon a day meaningfully lowered fasting glucose levels in adults living with type 2 diabetes. If you skip this one, you are leaving an incredibly easy win sitting right in your spice rack. Use about a quarter to a half teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon a day. You can stir it right into your oatmeal, your morning coffee, or a healthy smoothie. The real trick is to intentionally pair it with a carbohydrate-rich meal because that is exactly when you want your receptors gripping harder and your stomach slowing down its digestive process. Third on the list is broccoli sprouts, and I want you to pay very close attention here because this one is easily the most underused food in this entire discussion. I am not talking about full-grown broccoli, but rather the little 3-day-old sprouts. If you ignore this distinction, you miss out on almost all the medical benefit. Broccoli sprouts are loaded with a potent compound called sulforaphane, and these tiny sprouts contain somewhere between 50 and 100 times more of it than a fully mature head of broccoli. Sulforaphane does something that none of the other foods on this list do quite as directly. It goes straight to your liver and completely quiets down the overnight glucose factory. Your liver naturally makes sugar while you sleep, and when you have insulin resistance, it makes far too much of it, which is the exact reason why so many of you wake up with a high fasting number that you simply cannot explain. A landmark study from Lund University in Sweden gave concentrated sulforaphane to people with type 2 diabetes and brought their fasting blood sugar down measurably, with the absolute strongest effect seen in exactly the people whose sugar was historically the hardest to control. You can grow broccoli sprouts right on your own kitchen counter in a simple glass jar for pennies, or you can buy them in the produce section of the grocery store. A small handful, which is about a quarter cup on a salad or a sandwich most days, is plenty. Do not cook them heavily because high heat completely destroys the active compound. Eat them raw or just barely wilted. So far, every single food we have discussed has done the same quiet, powerful work of either slowing the sugar down or waking the receptor back up, and we are only 3 foods into the list. The next 4 foods are the ones that fundamentally change the meals you are already eating every day. If a friend or someone in your family is fighting their blood sugar numbers too, make sure to share this information with them because this is the foundational stuff that no one ever sits them down and explains during a doctor visit. Moving on, number 4 is the avocado. Most people mistakenly think of it as a fat to avoid because of the high calorie count, and that fear is costing them dearly. The fat found in an avocado is monounsaturated fat, which is the exact same healthy fat family as olive oil, and it is one of the most blood sugar-friendly things you can possibly put on a plate. The reason for this is simple. That healthy fat combined with the natural fiber inside an avocado slows your entire meal down. When you add half an avocado to a plate of rice or toast, you are not removing the carbohydrate from the meal, but you are putting a physical brake on how fast that carbohydrate turns into blood sugar. The glucose climbs gently and smoothly over time instead of spiking aggressively. Monounsaturated fat has also been shown to directly improve insulin sensitivity, meaning your cells answer that insulin knock a whole lot faster. In my experience, this is one of the easiest foods on the list to make into a daily habit because it makes the meal so much more filling, causing you to stop reaching for a snack an hour later. Half an avocado a day is a perfectly sensible amount to aim for. Put it on your eggs in the morning, mash it onto some whole grain toast, or add it to a lunch salad that already has a starch in it. Anywhere you have a carbohydrate present, an avocado effectively softens the blow to your system. Fifth on our list is chia seeds. These are tiny gray and black seeds, and they punch far above their weight class when it comes to nutrition. If you have ever seen chia seeds sit in a liquid and turn into a thick pudding, you've already seen exactly how it works inside your gut. Chia is one of the absolute richest sources of soluble fiber you can buy anywhere. When it meets the water inside your stomach, it forms that exact same thick protective gel we talked about with the fenugreek seeds, and that gel wraps around the carbohydrates in your meal and slows their absorption down to an absolute crawl. The sugar releases slowly and steadily into your system, so you avoid both the sharp spike and the subsequent crash that leaves you feeling shaky and hungry an hour later. Chia also carries a potent plant-based omega-3 fat that helps calm down the low-grade inflammation sitting underneath insulin resistance. If you cool that inflammation, the cells naturally start listening to insulin again. 1 to 2 tablespoons a day does the job beautifully. Stir it into your yogurt, drop it in a glass of water with a fresh squeeze of lemon, or blend it into a morning smoothie. Just give it about 10 minutes to gel up before you drink it, and make sure to drink plenty of water alongside it because all that powerful fiber needs ample liquid to move smoothly through your digestive tract. Number 6 is fatty fish, and I mean wild salmon and mackerel specifically. This particular food does not work by simply slowing your meal down at the digestive level. Instead, it works on the much deeper structural problem, which is the underlying reason your cells went deaf to insulin in the first place. Insulin resistance is driven in very large part by chronic cellular inflammation. When your body is quietly inflamed year after year, that inflammation physically interferes with the insulin signaling process right at the surface of the cell. Salmon and mackerel are loaded with 2 highly bioavailable omega-3 fats known as EPA and DHA, and these are among the most powerful natural anti-inflammatory compounds known to medical science. They lower the inflammatory signals throughout the body, the cell membrane becomes significantly healthier, and the insulin receptor starts working the exact way it was supposed to. In my 15 years of medical practice, the patients who consistently eat fatty fish at least twice a week have much calmer, more stable blood sugar numbers and better overall blood pressure to go right along with it. Aim for 2 solid servings a week, with each serving being about the size of your palm. Wild salmon, mackerel, sardines, and herring are all excellent choices. You can bake it, grill it, or simply buy it canned if that is easier on your monthly budget. Canned mackerel and canned sardines are some of the cheapest yet most powerful foods mentioned in this entire video. 7th on the list is walnuts. Of all the different nuts available, this is the one I point my patients toward first because of what it does for the delicate lining of your blood vessels and for your insulin levels at the same time. Walnuts are exceptionally rich in polyunsaturated fats and the same plant-based omega-3 found in chia seeds. That specific fat improves the function of your endothelium, which is the thin cellular lining inside your blood vessels, and that lining is one of the very first things that high blood sugar damages over time. At the exact same time, the unique combination of fat, fiber, and protein in walnuts blunts the rise in blood sugar after a meal, and has been clinically shown to lower fasting insulin, which is the hidden number underneath your blood sugar that tells you exactly how hard your pancreas is straining behind the scenes. Eat a small handful of walnuts as a snack instead of crackers or a cookie, and you have taken a potential sugar spike and turned it into a beautiful flat line. A small handful is about a quarter cup, or roughly 7 to 10 whole walnuts. Keep them raw or dry roasted, and stay away from the candied or honey-coated varieties. Use them intentionally to replace a processed snack rather than just adding them on top of one. Number 8 is eggs. Whole eggs, with the yolk included. For years, people were given the terrible advice that the yolk was the ultimate enemy, and that bad advice pushed folks right toward sugary breakfast cereals that were far worse for their blood sugar levels. Let me set the record straight once and for all. A whole egg is almost pure protein and healthy fat, with virtually no carbohydrate content whatsoever, which means on its own, it barely moves your blood sugar at all. But the real physiological magic is what doctors refer to as the second meal effect. When you start your morning with eggs instead of toast or cereal, you steady your blood sugar not just at breakfast time, but all the way through to lunch. You walk into your next meal with much calmer baseline numbers and a significantly smaller post-meal spike. The natural protein and fat also keep you deeply satiated, so those mid-morning cravings that usually send you running toward the cookie jar quietly disappear. In my practice, swapping out a high-carb cereal breakfast for 2 or 3 whole eggs is one of the single fastest ways I see a drop on a patient's morning glucose reading. 2 or 3 whole eggs in the morning is a solid target for most people. You can scramble them, boil them ahead of time for a busy week, or fold in some fresh spinach. Put that half avocado from earlier right on top, and you have built a near-perfect blood sugar stabilization breakfast. Number 9 is apple cider vinegar, and this is the single food with the absolute fastest visible effect on a continuous glucose meter of anything on this list. If you have a testing meter at home, you can watch this one work for yourself tonight. The active ingredient in apple cider vinegar is acetic acid, and it does 2 highly beneficial things at the exact same time. First, it slows your stomach from emptying, so the carbohydrates in your meal arrive in your bloodstream very gradually. Second, it directly helps your muscles pull glucose out of your blood to use it immediately for fuel. The clinical research here is incredibly strong. Independent work led by researchers at Arizona State University found that taking a tablespoon of vinegar before a carbohydrate-rich meal lowered the post-meal blood sugar spike by roughly 20 to 30% in people with documented insulin resistance. That is a drug-sized physiological effect from something that costs just a few dollars a bottle. Take 1 tablespoon, and this part matters immensely. Dilute it in a full glass of water about 10 to 15 minutes before a meal that contains carbohydrates. Always dilute it properly and never drink it straight, because the concentrated acid is very hard on your tooth enamel and your throat. And if you take any prescription medication for blood sugar already, talk to your doctor first, because vinegar combined with that medication can push your sugar down much faster than you expect. The 10th food is lentils, and this one perfectly proves the whole point of this discussion. Lentils are technically a carbohydrate, yet they will actively help lower your blood sugar. Here is how that complex process works. Lentils are structurally built from a special type of slow-digesting carbohydrate called resistant starch, which is wrapped tightly in soluble fiber and a healthy dose of plant protein. That specific combination means the glucose inside the lentil is released into your blood slowly and steadily over a period of hours instead of all at once. They actually carry that powerful second meal effect too, so a warm bowl of lentil soup at lunch gives you steadier sugar control well into the evening. Clinically speaking, swapping out white rice or white potatoes for lentils just a few times a week is one of the most reliable ways I know to bring down a patient's A1C, which is your 3-month average blood sugar marker. Aim for a half cup to a full cup of cooked lentils a few times a week. You can use them in a hearty soup, a stew, or a cold salad, tossed with some olive oil and a splash of the apple cider vinegar we just covered. They are incredibly filling, they are very cheap, and they stretch a family meal further than almost anything else. Let me tell you about a patient of mine named Donna. She was 63 years old, recently retired, and she came to my office deeply frightened because her fasting sugar was sitting around 180, and her conventional doctor had just told her it was time to add a second daily medication to her regimen. She did not want to spend the rest of her life climbing up the medication ladder, and she was genuinely scared of where this path was heading because she had watched her own mother lose toes, and then eventually her eyesight to this exact same disease process. We did not cut her carbohydrates down to absolutely nothing. Instead, we focused on strategic additions. We added eggs and avocado in the morning instead of her usual processed cereal. We introduced a tablespoon of diluted vinegar right before her bigger meals. We swapped in lentils for her usual white rice. We placed walnuts on her schedule instead of the afternoon cookie. We put fatty fish on her plate twice a week, mixed Ceylon cinnamon into her morning coffee, and added a handful of fresh broccoli sprouts to her sandwich at lunch. Within the very first week of making these additions, her morning fasting numbers started steadily dropping. Within 3 months, working alongside her primary doctor, she had come off that second medication entirely, and her overall A1C had moved out of the diabetic range back toward normal. 2 years later, that progress has held perfectly. She did not starve herself, she did not live in a state of deprivation, she actually ate more total volume of food, she just ate the right food, and her own body did the rest of the work. So let me tie all 10 of these foods together for you because this is the fundamental reason they work so well when cutting carbs alone often fails. Every single one of these foods is actively handing your insulin its job back without requiring you to starve yourself. The fiber-rich foods slow the glucose down so your pancreas never has to panic and overproduce hormones. The fatty fish, the walnuts, and the chia seeds cool down the systemic inflammation that was actively jamming the cellular signal. The Ceylon cinnamon and the apple cider vinegar walk right up to the insulin receptor and physically help it grip onto glucose again. Do that meal after meal, day after day, and the cell that stopped answering the door slowly starts opening it on the very first knock again. That is exactly what reversing insulin resistance looks like at the cellular level. And once that cellular healing happens, your body naturally holds your sugar down entirely on its own, which is the exact reason why Donna's numbers stayed low for 2 full years. Before I give you tonight's action plan, I need to draw one very clear safety line. If you are currently prescribed insulin or a sulfonylurea, which is one of the older classes of blood sugar pills, these foods can lower your sugar fast enough that your current medication dose may suddenly become too high, and that can drop you into a dangerous low blood sugar episode. So you must add these foods with your doctor actively watching your numbers, allowing them to safely walk your medication dose down as your body naturally improves. Do not stop any prescription medication on your own. Bring this specific list of foods to your very next medical appointment instead. So here is exactly what to do starting tonight, broken down into 5 simple steps. First, tomorrow morning, completely replace your standard cereal or toast with 2 or 3 whole eggs and half an avocado. That single breakfast swap changes your blood sugar dynamics for the entire day. Second, tonight before you go to bed, soak a teaspoon of whole fenugreek seeds in a glass of water and drink it first thing when you wake up in the morning. Third, buy authentic Ceylon cinnamon, not the common cassia variety, and start mixing a 1/4 teaspoon a day into your coffee or morning oatmeal.